Everyone, it's Enchanted, and I wanted to talk about Ice Spice's new album Y2K and her rollout. Starting off, I want to really give Ice Spice and her team props. In the beginning, I don't think anybody thought that Ice Spice would last this long and be able to maintain her relevancy. We know she isn't the most talented artist out there, but she has been doing a remarkable job at keeping her name in people's mouths. So her team has been moving, extremely calculated and, releasing the music at the right time, attaching Ice Spice to the right people, creating this unique look for Ice Spice, that signature fro, and playing the social media game. So at one point in time, it was almost impossible to, not see Ice Spice on the timeline. She was literally on every other post. It was ridiculous. So she further cemented her status in the industry by attaching herself to popular figures like Drake and Taylor Swift. So later on, we see Taylor Swift and Ice Spice released Karma, which, had mixed reviews, but of course she did it with Taylor Swift, so commercially it's gonna do well. She also had a very huge song with Pink Pantheress, The Boy's a Liar, which went top three on the Hot 100. She's also extremely likable, and I think this has had probably the most impact on um, her career as a whole. She's had some public squabbles recently. I know she's been getting attacked on Twitter for kind of being a mean girl as of late. That is recent, and most of those are just her responding to a kind of harsh critiques on her, performance and stuff. People have critiqued Ice Spice, but you can also tell that, it's not necessarily like a good critique where you're trying to be helpful. Lots of times it's, to kind of drag Ice Spice in a certain direction or, kind of, throw little jabs in there. And, when Ice Spice responded, with the specific example, this Twitter user, she went and basically said that Ice Spice sucked at performing. She's not the best performer. We know that. But the user kind of said it in a way where it was kind of trying to disrespect her and, kind of trying to get other people to egg on and kind of make fun of Ice Spice. Ice Spice responded, basically coming back at her for her look, saying like, I don't know, something along the lines of, I'd focus on how you look or something like that. And people on Twitter, they were getting on Ice Spice saying, oh, you can't handle critiques, you can't do this, or, you try to come for her looks when, blah, 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 blah. In my opinion, it's just like, I mean, I know I'm going off on a little tangent, but in my opinion, I hate when people hold celebrities to such a high standard when it comes to responding to criticism. You know what I mean? I feel like if you put yourself out there to dog or talk crap about a celebrity, you can't cry wolf or, you can't cry, uh, like you're so vulnerable once they're fans and, that heat gets back on you. You opened it up. You're the one that started that confrontation. So, you can't cry about how they respond to it. But she's been extremely likable. Especially earlier on in her career. There was a lot of drama kind of with Drake in the earlier stages, how Drake had invited her out and flew her out, and then eventually unfollowed her on Instagram. So lots of people were kind of making fun of Ice Spice, saying, "Oh, you just got flown out for Drake to, hit, and then, now he dropped you and you're done." And she was often asked about this in interviews, why did Drake unfollow you? Why this, that? And she responded with a lot of class. Most girls in this day and age, I mean, and understandably so, they kind of have a cocky attitude. And so, if it were to be somebody else, I could see them kind of ripping back at Drake and saying, "Oh, well, he didn't know what he's missing," or kind of going back at Drake a little harsh, which I think, granted what people are saying about Ice Spice, it's kind of warranted, especially in this situation. But she had a very chill aura, and that made her very likable. Lots of people liked how she was handling the questions. I know we have this thing with stars nowadays where lots of people are saying they aren't media trained enough. But Ice Spice is very media trained. She responds to questions very calculated, and I think that's something to respect. Especially lots of artists nowadays, we see that they're missing this type of media training, especially with Tyler. I don't want to go on that rant, but, even simple questions, lots of artists these days, lots of the newer artists, they don't know how to react to that. So props to her. So one controversial move that her team decided to do was attach her to Nicki Minaj. Now, this could be a good and bad thing. Good in the sense that Nicki Minaj, her name alone will help boost Ice Spice to new heights, expose her to a broader audience. But Nicki's fans are extremely fickle when it comes to the support. So they're gonna support you a ton whenever Nicki collabs with you or she co-signs you. They're going to buy your music, they're gonna stream your songs, they're gonna boost them. Nicki hopped on Ice Spice's song Princess Diana, which was a little mini hit. And it was really well received to this day. I think this is my favorite song from Ice Spice. She hasn't topped it yet. And I'll get to that a little later with her album. But they further solidified their collab power with Barbie World. So this was a smash hit. Actually, went alongside. It was one of the soundtrack singles for Barbie, that Barbie movie that came out. So huge movie, huge soundtrack. They had Dua Lipa. They had a bunch of other talented artists. 50/50, if you guys are into K-pop, they were on that uh, soundtrack as well. So this song, it benefited greatly. Ice Spice, her association with Nicki Minaj. However, being so close with Nicki Minaj, it often isolates you from much of the industry. So, Nicki Minaj, she's been in a feud with quite a bit of people in the industry. And she doesn't like when her friends or supporters kind of work with those people that she doesn't like. This has caused Ice Spice to pick sides and feuds that she wasn't even a part of. So she had gotten into it with Lotto, mainly off of Lotto's kind of beef with Nicki Minaj. Basically, she kind of interjected herself and was basically saying, don't, Lotto was posting a lot of things about Nicki Minaj. They were going back and forth. And Ice Spice basically said, you guys don't respect the older girls. Basically kind of throwing shade at Lotto, like, Nicki Minaj has been here. You need to show her some respect, basically. This has kind of caused, a series of back and forth between Lotto and Ice Spice. I think it helped both of them in a sense, but definitely, to be fair, it helped Lotto a little bit more. Ice Spice is more hype outside of music, which has translated to her producing those hits inside of music as well. Lotto, on the other hand, has been a little spotty in terms of her consistency, commercially especially. I don't think anybody thinks that Lotto rap, or I'm sorry, Ice Spice raps better than Lotto, but the numbers don't lie. Ice Spice has had that type of hype. I think Lotto benefited a little bit more off of that beef, but Lotto is still better lyrically and the more talented artist overall. Anyway, if we're just going to be objective. Um, Unfortunately, working with Nicki Minaj, in my opinion, I feel like it rarely pays off in the long run. At the end of the day, the fans that are gained from working with Nicki are still Nicki Minaj's fans. So anytime when Nicki falls out with someone she collaborates with, all that hype dies down. So, we saw that with Coi Leray. Blick Blick did really well on the charts, was boosted by Nicki Minaj's fans. They, streamed. Coi Leray, they're calling her the princess of rap. They do that with every new person that Nicki collabs with. Now it's Sexy Red, which yeah. But once Coi Leray had fallen out with Nicki Minaj, we see that all that support went out the window. So I think one of the big reasons for this is because Nicki is so much more talented than 98% of the girls that she's worked with, that there's not that much crossover outside of their collabs. So her fans aren't necessarily becoming fans of other artists because their talent isn't necessarily holding up to Nicki Minaj, if that makes sense. For the most part, like now she collabed with Doja Cat, very talented artist. There's still a lot of crossover, but you also have to keep in mind that their relationship is still pretty intact, even though some of the fans would say otherwise. So currently, Ice Spice has allegedly fallen out with Nicki Minaj, and we're starting to see that because the Barbs are not supporting Ice Spice like they used to. So there were these text messages between Ice Spice and her old friend that got leaked, where it was exposed that Ice Spice was talking crap about Nicki Minaj, basically alleging to Nicki Minaj, expecting much more out of Ice Spice than what she should have contractually. Ice Spice was kind of talking to her friends saying, I don't know why Nicki's expecting so much. I'm the one that brought her this collab. I'm the one that asked her to hop on it, which is interesting to say the least, because Barbie World, you would think that Nicki Minaj would automatically kind of have a song with Barbie. I mean, that's kind of her entire image. But allegedly, Ice Spice was the one that was offered the song, and she extended that to Nicki Minaj. So she was basically calling Nicki Minaj ungrateful. And to be honest, I don't see Nicki being a very fun person to work with. I'm just gonna be honest. Barb's don't attack me, but she always seems to kind of get into it with somebody. And I think we've seen time and time again that she often expects the younger rap girls to kind of kiss her ring, kiss her hand. I do think that the rap girls need to have, some sort of respect for Nicki. She paved the way, she held it down, but Nicki sometimes expects a little too much, and I can see that being very annoying coming from another artist, especially at the time being, Ice Spice was hot musically. She didn't necessarily need the collabs. Those collabs did help boost her and give her a lot more opportunities. So, I could see Ice Spice saying like, "I'm doing you a favor," even though Nicki Minaj is arguably, not even arguably, she's way more successful. She brings more to the table, but at the end of the day, if it was offered to Ice Spice was on this huge, long hit streak. I could see how Ice Spice could get a little bit big-headed. Um, and I feel bad for Ice Spice at the end of the day, just off of the situation. Everybody rants to their friends. You know what I mean? So her friend taking a vulnerable moment where Ice Spice might not have, meant exactly what she said, and Ice Spice later admitted, which I'll go into that the texts were real. Um, she I don't think, like, I always think it's really corny when people take private moments or discussions and then kind of try to leak them as a get back. It gives like just weird kind of backstabbing energy. Like, we might have been, if we were cool in the moment and you're cool with what we were saying in the moment, why try to bring it back as a gotcha moment right now? I just don't get that. But the Barbs, after seeing those texts, they stopped showing all the support to Ice Spice. They boycotted her, and it's shown in her recent releases. So she released "Give Me a Light," which is another single off of her album Y2K, and it received extremely lukewarm reactions. So I'm not gonna lie. Personally, I like the song. I like the instrumental. It sounded different to me than what, oh, at least the sample did. Sounded a little different than her normal stuff. I know, like eventually, once it got into the song, it kind of went back to those drill beats that we're used to seeing Ice Spice on. I like the instrumental. I like the sample. Maybe I just like the sample a little bit more, and that's why I'm praising the song as much because it really seemed like people did not like it. Lots of people didn't like that she was screaming on the song, and her rival Lotto even kind of threw some shots at her own in her own song, talking about stop screaming on all of your tracks. She kind of threw some shade Ice Spice's way, and lots of people feel that way. They feel like all of her songs are starting to sound the same, which kind of do. I'm gonna be real. And it Give Me a Light, it didn't even reach the Hot 100 charts. It didn't even chart. So that was probably one of her biggest misses as of late, because it had a lot of hype for it, and then that kind of deal with Storm, Ice Spice's friends, leaking her text messages. It kind of killed all the hype, especially the fan base that Nicki had given Ice Spice had all left. So they stopped streaming. They stopped, so we saw a huge drop in her sales, her streams, her kind of her just public image as a whole. So for her next single, she stirred up some controversy with Central C. So if you guys don't know, Central C is a UK rapper that is starting to make moves in the US. So Ice Spice and Central C, they began stirring up dating rumors, often being pictured and videoed together, shopping together, things like that. Central C does have a girlfriend, and she called out Ice Spice and Central C for sneaking around. However, both Ice Spice and Central C tried to assure her that it was just, a media stunt for their song Did It First. So they were saying it was nothing serious. There's more details on that, but that story was like low-key kind of boring. I'm not gonna lie. I think her name was Maddie's. She's one of those girls that when she tells the story on Instagram Live or TikTok or whatever, they just draw it out. It's like, get to the point. And lots of it didn't even make sense. I'm like, are you and Central C, are you guys dating? Because you're talking about things like, he'll contact me next week and things. I don't know. It was a whole mess. So I'm just gonna sum it up for you guys. She basically said that Ice Spice and Central C, they never really let her in on the fact that, they were doing this whole media run for the song. So she was getting embarrassed. Lots of her fans were coming at her like, "Are you just gonna uh, let them treat you like this?" And you're still being pictured with Central C. Like this isn't a good look for you. And so that's why Central C's girlfriend was mad. Heard Central C used to cheat on her or cheats on her on the regular. So I'm sure they'll be back together. No shade, but I'm sure they'll be back together. And it looks like that little media stunt between Ice Spice and Central C, it paid off because it debuted at number 62, and I think it's projected to reach a new peak of a new peak of 56 on this week's Hot 100 chart. So, they got a charting song that's doing really well and pretty stable on global Spotify. So, I mean, it looks like it's paying off. Um, Her album just released, and that's the bulk of her streams is that song right there. So during her press run, she commented on that earlier incident with those leaked messages talking about Nicki Minaj. Like I said, she did admit to it being real and mentioned that, she just said it out of frustration for the contract negotiations. She did mention that she, should have used different words and that she still did have a lot of respect. But I don't know about you guys, but our Ice Spice, I would have denied, denied, denied. You would not have, I would have never admitted to that. I would just, every time I would have just been like, no, Storm is crazy. That's her best friend, by the way. I'm like, she's crazy. She edited those texts. I don't know where she got. She's just trying to clout chase. She's mad that I blew up and she didn't, and she's just trying to expose me for something that I didn't do. That's what would have came out of my mouth because I don't want the barbs against me. I mean, that is something that you do not want. I'm telling you, you do not want it. Um, yeah, I would have called my best friend or ex-best friend at this. I would have called her every name under the book crazy. She's on drugs. I'm sorry, I would have had to throw her out of the out under the bus just like she threw me out under the bus. And I'm gonna be honest, like if you look at that Stormy girl's socials, like you would believe that she's on something. I mean, she's not all the way there. Check it out at your own will, but she's, kind of cuckoo. And you guys might even know her. Stormy, which is Ice Spice's ex-best friend, is that one that went viral on Twitter maybe like 6 months ago, I don't know, where she was dancing in that Target and they were like, you can't dance in here. She was filming a music video, so she's an artist herself, up and coming, I guess, or and she was filming a video in Target, her I don't know, her music video for her song Graveyard. And, they got kicked out of Target and then she went on this big rant like, oh, they're racist. They kicked me out because of they're racist. And it's like, no, they kicked you out because you're causing a disturbance in the store. So like I said, she is an artist, so I feel like she's a little jealous of the hype that Ice Spice has been getting, and that's why she was kind of trying to drag Ice Spice down, and it looked like it worked. So you did what you were trying to do, but yeah, it was just kind of messed up. So luckily for Ice Spice, like I said earlier, she is extremely likable. So she has been able to make a lot of other connections. So for her album, she was able to get two heavy hitters on the album, Travis Scott and Gunna. So the songs that they're featured on, they seem to be doing the best, which makes sense because they have huge fan bases, way bigger than Ice Spice's. So they're helping bring a lot of traction to those tracks. Personally, I feel like the album did what it needed to do. Would I revisit it? No. I'm gonna it, it I'm not gonna lie, like it took me a long time to even listen to the album in entirety. Like Ice Spice, I'm not one of those people that is just gonna dog Ice Spice. I think she makes music for what it is, but it was very hard to sit through that album, and it's only 10 songs, so that says a lot. Like it was just like it just sounded the same, and I heard she was trying to switch up her flow a little bit. Like I heard her trying to switch up the flow, but it just the substance just isn't there. Like it's just not deep. It just seems like songs that anybody could write. You know what I mean? If you give them like a day. So I mean, I feel like Ice Spice is more of a singles based artist. It's very hard to listen to Ice Spice for multiple songs in a row. I don't want to call her, like one dimensional exactly because, like I said, I heard her try a variety with, some of the instrumentals were a little bit more unique. Her flow, she tried a lot to, have some variety there, but she is extremely predictable. You know what you're going to get with the Ice Spice song and you kind of know how it's going to sound before you hear it. The reason I said the album did what it needed to do is because she put the album out for her upcoming tour, so she could have, a plethora of songs to sing on her or to rap to on her tour. It's an Ice Spice album. I mean, if you're expecting any crazy artistry, like you're kind of insane. I mean, she isn't a crazy talented artist, and that's okay. She does what's needed for her audience. I like three songs off of her album. I think my favorite song was Plenty of Suns or Plenty Suns, followed by Did It First, which is that song with Central C. And then lastly, I liked Papa. Um, did I like these songs enough to add to my playlist? No. um, I am a bit disappointed though in the album because it didn't have any standout singles. Like before I said that I feel like Ice Spice is more of a singles artist. It really didn't have any strong points on this album. Princess Diana, which was that song that she sung with or did with Nicki Minaj, I still think that is her best song to date, and that was a song that was decently early in her career. And for her not to have any song come even close to that, it's kind of showing that her artistry is kind of plateaued, in my opinion. I will say that I love that her team tried to create an era for this Y2K album. So it was a bit sloppy, but it genuinely felt like an era for me, and that's one of my favorite things. So from her singles rollout, she had a bunch of singles. She managed to make a lot of drama outside of her music as well, which helped get people into it. Um, it was very interesting to follow, and I wish more artists would start doing rollouts similar to this. There are a few artists like Lil Nas, Doja Cat, and recently Camila Cabello who are very good at making eras, but it seems like the trend nowadays is for quick music with singles instead of, cultivating these images, visuals, and auras surrounding a body of work. Most artists are just like, I'm releasing next Friday. You know, oh, I'm releasing this, the day before. It's like, why don't you try to help build anticipation? And maybe it's because, I'm now starting to come from a world of, I'm a big K-pop fan. They promote these albums for months before it even comes out, help build fandom hype. These artists in the West, they don't really do that anymore, and I think maybe it started by Beyonce, that trend of just dropping randomly and without any announcement, but these artists aren't Beyonce. So start doing a proper rollout, thank you. But anyway, the album as a whole, it's getting some lukewarm reactions. People are trashing the album, and the main support that she had from the Barbs has now dwindled. She is expected to sell around 20K units on the Billboard. I don't think anybody was, expecting crazy numbers from Ice Spice. I know some people were saying 50K on the Billboard 200. I thought that was crazy. Um, but I think that 20K is low. I think she should have at least been able to do around 35 to 40K, especially saying that she had Travis Scott, she had Gunna, she had Central C, these big names. Because when you think about it, JT, who I did a video about in a little earlier, she had done, I think she did around 25K, 23K, and she had no major mainstream artist on her album. She was able to do at least 20K. So Ice Spice debuting around the same as JT just doesn't even sound makes any sense. Now granted, JT did was able to she did have the backing of the Barbs. JT did have the Barbs to help, push her, help her stream. But at the end of the day, even now, allegedly, JT and Nicki fell out. So I don't know how much more backing she'll have from the Barbs, but it's still kind of crazy. I mean, Ice Spice had all this hype, and she I don't want to say fumbled it. I just think this is kind of more so where her true numbers would rely. If we have to be honest, lots of her numbers were boosted by, like I said, the Nicki Minaj fans and Taylor Swift, as well as the Ice Spice, not Ice Spice, the Pink Panthers collab. So all of these help boost her to like 40 million monthly listeners, which is a ton. She's back down to like 15 million right now. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It just kind of, this hype of the singles kind of died down. So now this is more so her true form, and we'll see where she goes from there. But I think this is also a good, it shows how social media doesn't always translate to commercial success. And you guys really need to remember that. So, if that was the case, Tinashe would be A-list. No shade. No shade. She's doing really good. I'm proud of what she's doing with Nasty, but all the hype online it rarely translates if you really don't have a solid fan base to kind of push you. But surprisingly, the album has been well received on Metacritic, which is one of the biggest album rating publications. It received a controversial 7.6 out of 10, which is insane. It's insane. So, for reference, Future Nostalgia by Dua Lipa scored 7.5. Nicki Minaj's Pink Print, 7.5. Eternal Sunshine, Ariana Grande's most recent album, 7.2. Billie Eilish's Hit Me Hard and Soft album scored a 6.8. Starboy by The Weeknd got a 6.7. So what exactly is the criteria? How there's no way that Ice Spice's album got a better score than any of the other albums that I just listed. I'm wondering if they're maybe comparing her album to other drill artists. Like, what is the criteria? Because I'm just, how? Maybe maybe they're not comparing each other to, like, they're not comparing Y2K to Pink Print or Eternal Sunshine. Maybe the only way I can kind of make it make sense in my mind is if they're comparing it to other drill albums, and then they're comparing Ariana Grande to other like albums in that genre, but it just doesn't make sense. How would she get a 7.6? Guys, and if I don't even want to trash it too much, but it was not better than the albums listed. Okay, let's just say that. So is this album the end of Ice Spice? I doubt it. But I do see her becoming way less relevant musically. I feel like we will see her transition into more of an influencer similar to Iggy or Sweetie. She seems to have a lot of industry push. We might see her branch off into television as well. Who knows? Again, I don't think we've seen the end of her. Um, we have been saying this, everybody's been saying that it's going to be the end of Ice Spice, and she's been, being able to elevate herself, and kind of live above people's expectations, which I think is really impressive, especially given the talent pool. But, like I said, she's been doing a good job of just kind of cultivating this image, keeping her name in people's mouths, and just being very likable overall. So I think that's really helped play a huge role in her longevity. What are your guys' thoughts? Do you think that this will be the end of Ice Spice? Did you enjoy Y2K? I also want to know if you guys think it's beneficial for rap girls to associate with Nicki Minaj. What are your thoughts on that? I know everybody wants to because, they look up to Nicki Minaj, but do the benefits outweigh the downfalls? I mean, let me know your guys' thoughts. Yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like and subscribe, and see you guys in the next video.